vegetarian kitchen. Namaste. Today we're going to be preparing a vegetarian version of a very, very popular Indian dish. I'm sure you're all familiar with butter chicken. At some point in your life, you've had it, I'm sure, or many times over. It's one of the most popular items on an Indian restaurant menu. But when you're vegetarian, it's nice to be able to have a vegetarian version of this, and so we thought we would show you how to make butter cauliflower with essentially the same sauce as the butter chicken sauce, but using cauliflower. And we're going to add some additional protein to it with the addition of edamame. So it's going to be sort of an Indian fusion cauliflower butter dish. I'm going to introduce you to the ingredients that we're going to be using today before we start cooking. So let's start with the essential ingredients which most Indian recipes use. So here are the ingredients we're using today. We have minced ginger, finely minced ginger. It's about a heaping tablespoon and a half maybe. Maybe about a thumb-size piece of ginger, which is finely minced. Then we have garlic. This is about 6-7 medium-sized cloves of garlic, nicely minced. Here we have some coriander, cilantro. A lot of people call fresh coriander cilantro. And a couple of green onions, which we are going to use toward the end of the cooking process, so that we retain the nice flavor of the green onion and cilantro. And this is a large onion, again finely chopped up, which all of these components are going to be making part of the masala. And the spices that are going to go into it, of course, we have whole cumin. You can use ground cumin as a substitute to whole cumin, but I love the flavor and the texture of whole cumin. It makes the dish have a very toasty, nutty flavor. And then we have a teaspoon of garam masala and about a half a teaspoon of turmeric. Here we have cayenne on the one side, and a little bit, so this is about a half a teaspoon and a half a teaspoon of tandoori masala. And here's my version of tandoori masala spice that I'm using. It has a number of ingredients in it, but the key is we want to give it the color and flavor of a butter chicken dish, and tandoori masala will give our cauliflower, our vegetarian version of this dish, a nice color equivalent to what you might see in a restaurant butter chicken dish. And of course we have sea salt. That's about a heaping teaspoon of sea salt, maybe a teaspoon and a half, and of course you would adjust that according to your own preference. And about a teaspoon of brown sugar, which we will add depending on if we have a preference to add a touch of sweetness to the dish. And then moving on, we have about 2 cups of tomato sauce, and I'm using an organic tomato sauce. And we have the vegan version of the dish. Instead of cream, we're going to use coconut milk. And of course you can substitute it for cream if you prefer. And what we need is approximately 2 cups of that. And this is a 400 milliliter can of tomato sauce. Here's our nicely cut up cauliflower florets. And this is a 1 medium-sized cauliflower. And our plant-based protein addition to the dish is about a cup of frozen edamame. So here are all the ingredients we're going to use, so let's get cooking. So first of all, the stove is on, and I'm going to roast the cumin a little bit just to bring out its nutty flavor. It doesn't have to be for very long, just for maybe a minute. And the temperature is about medium-high heat at this point. And you don't want to overdo it either. You will start smelling it once the fragrance starts getting released. And then add olive oil. And now most traditional Indian cooking uses clarified butter, or what we call ghee. However, I prefer to use olive oil, essentially for health purposes, because it's not a saturated fat, as well as we're making a vegan dish, so we will not be using clarified butter. And don't need to measure it. For this dish we need maybe 2-3 tablespoons full, so I'm just filling this up and then heating it up, blending it together. So you see the cumin is beginning to sizzle a bit, and that means we can start adding the other ingredients. So first of all, this is the garlic. And just move it around. Before adding the ginger and onion, you just want to temper the garlic a little bit. If you do that with the garlic, it enhances the flavor of the dish, of the masala. Essentially, the masala is your base for the majority of Indian cooking, and it incorporates cooking ginger, garlic, onion, and sometimes tomato with the spices to form the base for the eventual dish that you're going to make. So once the garlic starts just being somewhat tempered, but not getting brown, because we want to brown it with the rest of the ingredients, then you can start adding the ginger and the onion. Well, I think it's ready, because the trick with garlic is once it starts heating, it will start turning color fairly quickly. Here we have the ginger. And within a minute or so after adding the ginger, I'm going to add the onion, because I don't want my garlic to get overdone. Here we go. This was about 1.5 cups of chopped onion, a nice medium-sized, large-sized onion. And what we're going to do is mix all of this up nicely, have it sizzling and on its way, and cover it and stirring occasionally every couple of minutes. So this is about 5 minutes into, after adding the ginger and onion. As you can see, it's getting tempered, but it still hasn't started to brown. And it'll take probably about 15 minutes for it to start changing color. So this is about 15 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes in since adding the ginger and the onion. As you can see, it's getting nicely browned. I'm going to add turmeric to this. Turmeric is a beautiful spice. Not only does it enhance flavor of Indian dishes and add color, it is an anti-inflammatory and is used throughout ancient history, has been used for medicinal purposes as well. Ayurveda is the science of life, and Ayurvedic nutrition talks about all of these key spice ingredients that Indian cooking uses, which are very beneficial to one's health, and they are balanced according to warming foods, etc. We've sauteed the masala with the turmeric for a few minutes, and I'm going to throw in the cauliflower. Once the cauliflower is added, you'll really see, the color of the turmeric coming through. It's beautiful yellow. And turmeric comes from a ginger-like root. It looks very much like ginger, but the inside of it is very yellow. And then it's dried and grounded into a powder. The cauliflower has been sauteing for about 5 minutes. I'm going to add the edamame now. Cauliflower is actually a wonderful dish to make as a substitute for the typical butter chicken dish, because cauliflower has that very meaty texture. Now, I'm going to start adding the rest of the stuff and spices. First of all, here's our coconut milk. I'm going to add the spices. That was the cayenne and a little bit of tandoori masala. You can see how it's blending in with the color of the yellow turmeric and adding a nice reddish tone to it. This is home ground garam masala with a number of spices in it. You can use just ground coriander, or I prefer to use garam masala because it has such much more depth and dimension to it with the different roasted spices. And of course salt. Mix everything together. Some people use tomato paste, but I prefer to use sauce. Although there's absolutely no problem using tomato paste if you want a thicker, zestier curry, that's fine too. And of course, feel free to adjust the spices to your taste. So everything is mixed in now. Essentially what we need to do is let it simmer covered for about 15 minutes to let all of the flavors get infused and the vegetables to become nicely cooked. And then we'll add the green onion and cilantro and test it to see if there is any need to add the little bit of brown sugar for a little bit of sweetness in there. So I'm going to cover it and let it simmer. So this has been simmering for about 15 minutes now, and look at that beautiful color. The cauliflower is more or less cooked, and everything is infused beautifully. You would want to have some right now if you could smell it. It smells beautiful. I'm going to add just a teaspoon, and this is of course optional, you don't have to add it, but typically butter chicken has a little bit of sweetness to it, and so we'll try and do the same. And I'm not going to add all of it. Maybe I'll just add a little more than half of it because we don't want to overdo and take away from the savory flavor. And the last but not least ingredient is our couple of chopped green onions and cilantro. And this is the beautiful finishing touch. And you see the gravy is nicely thickened now. You don't want to overcook it either because cauliflower has a tendency to mush, and you still want the florets to keep their shape. And another minute on the stove and we're done. So I'll put the lid back on. I don't want to stir it too much because that'll break up the cauliflower as well. And it'll be ready. So here we have it. We have this beautiful vegetarian, if you want to call it butter cauliflower. There's no butter in it. It's vegan, it's healthy, it has protein in it, and it's beautifully spiced and has a wonderful fragrance. And we're going to serve it with, what else? Basmati rice, which is ready to go. You can also serve it with naan, or sometimes I make quinoa and serve it with quinoa. You can have it with roti, whatever you like. The best part about cooking is you get to eat it. So how about I let you know how it tastes? Smells wonderful, beautiful color, beautiful texture. And I love cauliflower. I love edamame. It's really, really tasty. I don't know why anybody would even want to have butter chicken, because this is wonderful.